and sewed together, and we got like 10 copies of that rolling around, and I keep giving them away. So, um, Bobby Sands understood about this culture I was talking about of resistance, that through the poems and the songs and spoken word, that it made these children want to grow up and be a part of this thing and be willing to give everything for it, and make it mean more than anything. And, like in this country, badly we need people like that. But like, I never think that anytime I think, I would love to go run away to Ireland and join the struggle there, but they have like so many people better than me. Like it's not uncommon over there for people to act like the way Bobby Sands acts. There's literally, you can go on the internet every single day of the whole calendar year and find an Irish guy who died fighting for this stuff that day. And you're going to find some of them that died through hunger strike and through other things that are, heartbreaking. Yeats wrote this poem after the Easter Rising where he refers to what he saw happening as a terrible beauty. These men rose up and did this blood sacrifice and did all these things. And so it's a really ugly thing to watch, but he also saw the beauty in what they were willing to sacrifice, for freedom.
Can you speak up just a bit?
I can. Thank you. So one of the things Bobby Sands did, among all the things he did, was he wrote poems and songs and taught people Irish and did other parts besides being a soldier. And I think maybe my favorite poem is one that he wrote, and it kind of has a lot to do with all this stuff we're talking about. And I'll try to say it right here, and I should know it without looking, but I'm going to look just so I don't mess up. Okay, there's an inner thing in every man. You know this thing, my friends? It has withstood the blows of 1,000,000 years and will do so till the end. It was born when time did not exist and grew up out of life. It cut down evil strangling vines like a slashing searing knife. It lit fires when fires were not and burnt the mind of man, tempering leaden hearts to steel from the time that time began. It wept by the waters of Babylon when all men were a loss, and it screeched in writhing agony and hung bleeding from the cross. It died in Rome by lion and sword in a defiant, cruel array, when the deathly word was Spartacus along the Appian way. It marched with what? The Tyler's poor, and frightened lord and king, and it was emblazoned in their deadly stare as ever a living thing. It smiled in holy innocence before conquistadors of old, so meek and tame and unaware of the deadly powers of gold. It burst forth through pitiful Paris streets and stormed the old Bastille, and marched upon the serpent's head and crushed it neath its heel. It died in blood on buffalo plains and starved by moons of rain. Its heart was buried at Wounded Knee, but it will come to rise again. It screamed aloud by Kerry Lakes as it was knelt upon the ground, and it died in great defiance as they coldly shot it down. It is found in every light of hope. It knows no bounds nor space. It has risen in red and black and white. It is there in every race. It lies in the hearts of heroes dead. It screams in tyrants' eyes. It has reached the peaks of mountains high and comes searing across the skies. It lights the dark of this prison cell, and it conjures forth its might. It is the undauntable thought, my friends, the thought that says I'm right. So I just like that a lot, and I think it's kind of what the whole thing's about. There's also, I had a quote in here that I wanted to read when we got talking about actual resistance. There's an Indian guy named Black Hawk in the 1800s that basically said, what does it say? They know our cause of making war. It is known to all white men, and they ought to be ashamed of it. I think that's still true. It's the same as the one in 100 AD. That people would tell me, well, why should we be fighting back? I don't even think I have to spell it out. But some things that I think I might have noticed that I haven't heard other people talk about is like this. Like everybody knows about traditional forms of genocide and economic genocide and all these different things and ways of oppression. But what's the word for a human being that's born and indoctrinated and lives and dies their whole lives completely indoctrinated, believing everything they were ever told about all this? What kind of murder is that? And how many people did that happen to? We might have lost more to that than anything. If you're my age, it's probably your parents that happened to. So when I want to talk about nonviolent forms of resistance, I want to start getting truth in history books, and I want to start making people not live and born and die, and might as well have, not lived at all,
Like The Matrix.
No, it really is. I haven't even watched that movie all the way through, but I get the gist of it, and I see the memes, and I understand, and it really is. It really is. Like, almost everything, like the way I grew up, I was in the system, and my parents had money. When my dad died, lawyers and judges right in front of everybody stole the money because we were just orphan kids, and what are you going to do about it? And people that used to kind of be, my dad was a big fish in a small pond, so when he was alive, people didn't treat us that way. But the second he was dead, everybody got treated different, and people came for the money, and it didn't matter what happened to us. I knew there was lies before that. I didn't really take to being a 1%er. I don't think either I was just lucky and somehow had instincts about what was coming, or I just was never cut out for that, you know. I mean, that literally, and then too, that was probably the worst time of my life, the first 11 years when I lived in that. The people that I knew saw how they were, you know, like I'd go to school with normal kids and see kids that didn't, I knew that very few people lived the way that my father and my family did, and that most people, almost everybody, lived this other way, and it didn't just feel right. It didn't feel right at all, you know. At a young age, instinctively, that didn't feel right. You know, I knew something was wrong about that. You know, like guys who I played with at school or whatever, their dads would come and do my lawn, and they would come and work and help or whatever at my dad's house, and I saw that at a young age, you know. And then, you know, since then, I got locked up. I lived on the streets, you know, whatever, everything in between. I've seen a lot of it. So it gave me, I definitely, before I even started studying and educating myself, I knew everything was a lie. And that's true. Almost everything they tell you is a lie. Question everything if you didn't already know that, you know. Go look it up from 5 different sources. Look it up from 10 different sources, you know. And a good place to start is your own history. And that's even hard for us to do here in America, you know. But take your last name and give it a shot. That might be your real last name, you know. And then too, you know, and the one place some of this stuff gets through, like amongst Irish people in this country, the most thing they really have is somebody told you you're supposed to be damn proud that you're Irish, and maybe you're supposed to get in a fight real good and drink a lot, you know. But they told you you're supposed to be proud of it though, so at least I knew I was Irish, you know. Even my dad, who's an asshole, he would say, "Well, you know, you're Cherokee. You should be proud of that," you know. And so that gave me enough to have something to go with, and I'm lucky enough, not on my mom's side, because, you know, Indian people, and it's different, so I've never had any luck looking on the internet for family tree stuff for that. But on my dad's side, I found stuff, and I traced stuff back enough to know that the most thing I've ever done that I'm proud of in my life is, after a lot of displacement happened, and I kind of view anybody who's on this continent that's not a full-blooded indigenous person to this continent, we're all displaced. One way or the other, we're all displaced. We're not where we would have been with the cultures we would have had, and if this big giant land theft, yeah, it creates a lot of chaos when that happens at this mass scale. You know, like something like this might have happened before, but it never happened across 2 continents and all the islands in between. You know. And then too, like when you talk about the American Empire, and you talk about, you know, we could talk about Geronimo, and I did want to say something about Tecumseh. When I first started learning about, you know, Irish history, there's these Irish leaders that even through the whole 800 years, like, and a lot of people, for people who know anything just peripherally about the conflict there, the people who are known as the Wolfe Tone, the father of modern day Irish republicanism, or not modern day, just Irish republicanism, Protestant, Robert Emmet, Protestant, you know, like these are the guys who started what turned into the IRA eventually. They were Protestants. It's not a religious war, but, you know, the British government would like to foster and make it one, though, and it helps if everybody's fighting amongst themselves. It's just, you know, there's a lot of that going on here too, you know. When I grew up in the system, I remember looking at this unit and say, hey, there's like 24 of us kids, and there's like 3 of them. We could get this place. We could get out of here maybe. We could do this, we could do that, we could do whatever. And it was really hard to talk anybody into it, and I sure didn't get it, you know. Once in a while, I talked 2 people into it, and we'd try. Once I even talked the whole group into it, and only one girl helped me when everybody went back on the plan, you know. And that's another thing, like if you hear Malcolm X or anybody talk about being military here, they'll come up talking about bravery. And, you know, and I won't use the same words they say, but I'll say this. In the system, I saw little kids smaller than me defend themselves against grown men adults that they knew they were going to get worse beatings and bad things were going to happen no matter what at the end of it, and they still did it anyways. They still resisted anyways. We can all be like that. Yeah. You know, that's not even brave. That's defending yourself. If you kick a dog, it's going to try to bite you. It just happens. It's a natural course of things, you know. But part of this indoctrination we're in, you know, and again, I don't want to put down any, but I will tell everybody, go study the whole climate and history of people like Martin Luther King and of Gandhi, of what was going on in the whole country at the time. And, you know, like over here, we have Martin Luther King, and you know, black people are angry because shortly before our lifetime, you could pretty much hang them and get away with it, catch them on fire, mutilate them, and they couldn't go in the front of the store, and everybody knew it, but we were the freest country in the world. You know, so black people are angry, and they were going to follow one way or the other, this type of leader or that type of leader. And the government, I'm pretty sure, manipulated things to get more people to want to follow the nonviolent. You know, they don't have to move pieces around the board if we protest, if we, you know, sue them, if we force them to investigate themselves. They're going to often find, like a lot of people would, that when I investigate myself, I find not only did I not do nothing wrong, but I acted exemplary. You know, it's going to be like that, you know. So when you're working within their system, what I saw a quote the other day that, you know, change the system from inside itself. Like, yeah, like, so let's go join the KKK and change that to something good, you know, because it doesn't make any sense when you put it like that, you know? Yeah, I don't think it's about reformation. I think it's about, you know, the same thing. When we say Hitler and try to make that synonymous with genocide and evil, we should be saying, you know, earlier, the founding fathers that get held up in high esteem, even among activists. I hang around with a lot of high-level activists, and 1 out of 10 or 1 out of 20 will say, Jefferson, da 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 da, and I'll say, Jefferson was a genocidist, and then Columbus, you already know about that. We didn't even talk about that, but yeah, slave trader, never been on the continent. 10 years later, all the people of Hispaniola completely genocided. Successful genocides occurs here, where all the people are gone. That we're never even some of them even know who they were because it wasn't recorded. I'm sure that happened here. And they did bring disease and sickness, but they also brought a lot of other bad things. But the real sickness they brought is what became this culture vacuum and this loss of anything good. Back then, there was a 1% too, the myth of American democracy or whatever. And two, it's not a democracy; it's a republic, which means a representative democracy. But that's not true either. And in the beginning, when they first were making it a democracy and all men were created equal, but you can find court rulings where they say, but that doesn't count Indians, and that doesn't count black folks, and that doesn't count women. So that's really what it was. It was the founding of this. This is not an accident. We didn't get here because capitalism ran wild on accident. We didn't know this where it leads or any other kind of story you want to make. We got here because there was an aristocratic class that developed here, an elite class that was sending most of the profits back to England. They were like, you know what? We could make an empire out of this. We could keep the profits here, and we could turn this into an empire. It was the last part of the world that hadn't been fully, at that time, devastated for resources. And they had these two big giant oceans protecting them. That's the other reason this empire's gone on. Even it's not as long as the Roman Empire yet or the British one, but I don't think we would have made it this long the way it carries itself if it didn't have those two big oceans protecting it. The rest of the world probably wouldn't have put up with us this far. If the technology ever comes in a way where you can just hop, skip, and jump across, probably somebody's coming, I think. But yeah, so the natures of empires changed too. So pre-World War II, if you want to be an empire, you have to take over the country and put in your own flag and put your own people in charge. America doesn't do it that way. We change the governments and let them keep their flag. But if you could see a flag over everything that we control like an empire, it's like almost 200 of the countries on planet Earth. And there's only like 230 or something. Does anybody know, I asked Tom this outside, but as far as American propaganda goes and the way the laws work with the propaganda, does anybody know how many times America's ever declared war on anybody? Declaration of war. Declaration of war. I told you yesterday. You're close. It's 5. It's 5.
Wow. Yeah.
Only 5. But we could easily go on Wikipedia or wherever and find 150, 200 conflicts. Vietnam was never declared a war. Afghanistan, Iraq was never declared a war. Korea was never declared a war. The Revolutionary War that wasn't declared a war. I'm not an expert on that, but I heard what we learned about that's full of lies too. The Civil War is full of lies. A lot of that. Pretty much anything in American history that I've ever took the time to go research, I found that it's what I had been told was full of lies. Completely. Sometimes the opposite thing is what they write. So yeah, America declared war in the War of 1812, the Spanish-American War, the Mexican-American War, World War I and World War II. In the Mexican-American War, the only Irish guys I'm really proud of over here joined up on the Mexican side, deserted the American army, and fought against the Americans. And the second largest mass execution the Americans ever ordered was against those guys. They wanted the last thing that they saw before they were hung all at the same time was to see the Mexican flag go down and the American one go up and then hang them. Because we're freedom. We love freedom. Not land grabbing and imperialism and killing people of color, especially. What else did I want to get on before we get to the end here and see if we can talk about some stuff? I did want to bring up just a little bit about the Afghan people and the Vietnamese people. When people say, well, things are different now, it's not like 1916 and you can't do that or whatever. I was like, well, they do it in Afghanistan and they did it in Vietnam, and both of those cultures. The Vietnamese people dug a tunnel under their whole country to jump out and get you. That's badass, and it's simple. It takes hard work, but they did it. It's a badass thing. And they did a lot of things like that, and they were dedicated, and they had driven out the French before that, and they had driven out the Japanese, I believe, before that. A lot of people don't know, in the last battle between the French and the Vietnamese, everybody knew the French were going to be overrun. America tried to persuade and offer to France 2 nuclear bombs to drop on the battle, and the French refused to do it because they would have killed their own troops that were going to die anyways. But America wanted to show everybody, like they did in World War II, that we can look what we can do. The same way we like to tell everybody else they can't have nuclear weapons, and we're really the only one that's ever turned them loose on anybody. I think, and when they argue that, well, that's for world safety, why these other countries can't have it, we're the ones that probably make the world not safe by having it. From historical evidence, only us. Okay, let's see, what do I want to get to for you? Okay, the Afghan people also too, if you watch this current, the Afghans have repelled every single empire that ever existed. They're a trade route. That's why we're there right now, is for a pipeline. In the old days, they were taking silk and spice and things through it, but it's not for their resources that were there. It's because if you want to steal the resources from the other good places there, you have to go through there, or it's way far out of your way. And that's why we're there in Afghanistan right now. And if you look at the modern day conflict over there. Every single year, the Afghans have got more effective at resisting the Americans too and killing more, and it's been going up and up. And if you look, American suicides have gone up more than anything else have too. And that comes back to having like in Ireland, everybody knows who these soldiers were that went and did their thing for freedom and gave their lives, and they get poems and stories written about them, and they're never going to be forgotten. In America, I've never yet met somebody who can name me 10 American war heroes. And I sometimes have debates with guys who think that they're, on the other side of me, but they went to college and got a university degree and all this and that. And if they're lucky, they'll say Audie Murphy and Sergeant York. And I'll say those two don't count because you saw it in a movie. I mean, they're true. If you can tell me all about Audie Murphy, I'll give you. You can count it a little bit, or something. But nobody can. We're not. And same thing. How many? What's this? Somebody might know better than me. How many homeless people is a vet? And it's supposed to be most homeless people are veterans. I think it's something like 3 out of 5 or 2 out of 5 or something here.
Yeah, it's definitely more than half.
Yeah, it's not like in Vietnam they would come back and this happened to them, but it still happens. That's happening worse now. So yeah, this imperialism is a sickness that branches out in so many different ways, and we're at a point in this culture or lack of culture where that's all we have now is this sickness. I think and what the environmentalists and scientists, if we listen to them, like we might not even have time to sort this out before they kill us that way or whatever. But to me, still, like what my whole trip is about now, since I changed my ways, is about being good. And when I learned that what I believe to be the greatest evil on planet Earth right now is this American empire, and so it makes sense to me with my human life, my life and my death, to resist against it as best I can. With the whole thing, I don't know something better that I could be doing. We're in a climate where it's definitely hard, especially as one person. I was in Occupy, and there were some pluses and minuses. So since working by myself and with them, like it is good to have a big group and do some, have something that this big thing behind you. But then I didn't have, I couldn't talk about violence and different things like I wanted to. But in either case, I'm an intelligent person, and I'm left with thinking about effectiveness. Whatever we're doing, people who want to work in this way and talk in this way, we should all be talking together. We should start talking about being effective, or we're wasting time. Might as well go back to sleep. Does anybody want to get in a discussion with me? Or with each other?
Why don't you say something a little bit about Tecumseh?
I did want to say just about Tecumseh. This will be quick. It's just historical stuff. And I started to think of it. It's easier to learn about Geronimo and Crazy Horse than some of these ones. A lot of people don't know about Tecumseh. This is late 1700s, early 1800s. He's a Shawnee chief. President Harrison, when he's just a governor, is making war with them, and breaking deals and all kinds of genocide, whatever. Tecumseh is the one leader. After learning about all these Irish leaders, I wanted to find Indian leaders that were, Robert Emmett, when he's about to get executed, gives this speech that he's clearly talking to generations that may come long time after him. He understood the nature of the struggle and how long it was going to be, and you can see that he's talking into the future. I was looking for ones like that, and I found it in Tecumseh. Besides being, really good at military tactics and other things, he spoke like that. And the one, I don't obviously recognize America's legitimate government. I consider myself the displaced Irishman. I think Tecumseh, the last law of any American leader that I know that I really believe is Tecumseh said, this is all Indian land, it belongs to every Indian everywhere, and no Indian can sell it even to anybody anywhere. And yeah, he tried to unite the tribes. He might have been their last real good chance. He tried to, he was going up and down and uniting tribes. They made an all intertribal place called Prophetstown. Just like in every movement, bad things happen in the end and they lost or whatever. But man, when you look through Indian history, the kind that is there and easy enough to find, there's a lot of good stuff to learn. But that's a beautiful one. That guy was 1 in a million or whatever. We need people like that. And they're out there, but they're indoctrinated and they're asleep, and they're going to end up having that word that there's not a word for, where they're born, live their whole life like that, and die, and they didn't even know what they were. I mean, I would have, if things could have happened slightly different in my life, and I would have been dead or incarcerated my whole life and not even known to be good. Or whatever, and just through going along with circumstances and reacting to my normal life. I don't think I set out to be like a bad guy or anything like this, but this society, that's the first sign I ever made in the first protest I went to. This society eats people. This system eats people. And then you, my friend.
Great talk. You're throwing up here and there anyway. I couldn't organize my thoughts, but so America is a great country. Because, like, for example, you can talk like this without fear of repercussion.
Sometimes.
You have the same freedom of speech as the powerful. instead of being an activist, isn't it better to be powerful? So then if you are once you're powerful, then you can influence people.
I mean, there's something in what you're saying there, but at first, I'd respond to the free speech stuff. Okay, the first year I became an activist was the end of 2011, and I think even midway through 2012, there was already something like 10,000 illegal arrests for people who were exercising freedom of speech. So they'll let us do freedom of speech, when they want it, where they want it. Like if you go doing it where they don't want you to be doing it, they will arrest you. And
Free speech zone.
Yeah.
no, yeah, I've been in places where they say, hey, free speech zone, and they put a tape on the ground in a square and say only between 1 and 2 o'clock, at the state capitol, at our legislative buildings, and they beat and arrested people. They did. I want to get, what is this, the second part of this question about getting power and then being influential. And I'll just answer this one personally, and so I wouldn't try to convince anybody else of this. But when I was born into an affluent family, I rebelled against that harder than I did against when they locked me up. Like I didn't want to have nothing to do with that. I've had it. Like when I got married, I think it might have ended up with me and my wife becoming not married. That I was never going to be. I want to make enough money. I want to be comfortable and live and have what I need. And if I had more than that, I'd be giving it to other people. I don't hold on to money. Like I think that's part of these illusions we have. Like and this isn't all my material. I might say it a little different, but what real power is things like earthquakes and mountains and fire and lightning. Like part of this illusionary society we live in, where they've altered our perceptions, they want us to believe that police officers and court buildings and government officials and the system is a force of nature and is power. It's not power, it's brutality, it's violence, it's oppression, but it's not power. Power is like the earthquakes and like the lightning. And like so many people, we're actually a force of nature. Like of all human beings, besides truth in the history books over generations, the only other peaceful way I know to stop empire would be if the working class just stopped doing what they wanted us to and did our own thing. They're not going to pick up their own guns. They're not going to take out their own trash. They're all going to run away like the old English thing, Flight of the Earls. They'll all disappear if we just stop doing all the stuff for them. The first day, that's the fastest, quickest way to checkmate. But, maybe a raindrop or a snowflake doesn't know how powerful it is, but until you see it, flooding stuff, like maybe someday people will realize the force of nature they are. That's where the real power is to me. I don't think in one person. Too, if I had a bunch of money, I'd go find some land, try and make an army. Maybe, I'm not saying money couldn't help, but
Can I make a comment towards that? A fine example of that is it's based on intelligence. You pick a career in college. You pick a career growing up. You pick your role models. And somebody like Donald Trump, financially, he has got to be one of the most powerful people in America.
For sure.
But his intelligence is about money. Somebody like Martin Luther King Jr., his intelligence was about family and commitment to the community. There's two different intelligences in which direction you go.
Yeah.
I think about hunger striking a lot for the White House. Like that's where I'll have my power. If anything,
Also, to address the idea that we have free speech, ignore the free speech zones. I can provide you, if I had my laptop and bookmarks, with half a dozen examples in just this decade where Lydia Black was an anarchist activist in Oakland, California, was arrested, not charged with anything, and then held for a year and a half.
Yeah.
Her only crime was distributing literature. We have the idea that we have free speech in this country.
No,
but if the speech that you're spreading could actually change the system, they will hit you harder than a Mack truck.
The specific stuff I'm talking about, if I was saying this to y'all and there was 1,000 of y'all and I was in front of their buildings, they might come put a stop to us. They very well might. And then that's the thing too. So I travel all around this country, and I meet people from all walks of life. Even Democrats being, somewhat part of the left or whatever, to people that are more radical. And even the ones who won't come out and talk about nonviolence or outwardly think about it, they all in principle seem to agree with me. They say this is the most evil thing that exists right now. They say this is the thing that should be struggled against at all costs. Yeah, we should be willing to give everything. But then they won't come in my eyes, they've already agreed with me, but they just won't come and bring it across to say it. We're scared of that here. And that's something I would almost say. I think Malcolm X has a lot better words about me, about people who keep us from being even allowed to think that way. And so whether you agree in militant tactics or not, why do any of us feel as an activist that we need to find another activist participation? And then something like Bobby Sands said, that we all have a role to play. There's something there for everybody. Those things do support each other too. In a place like Ireland, you can see where the nonviolent protests and civil rights movements type tactics, which they're having over there too, was working hand in hand with militant tactics, and they both made the other one stronger. When people went in an election and elected Bobby Sands to member of parliament, that pretty much told the world that he's a political prisoner. You know, like he's got popular support of the people of this community. You know, you can't say, oh no, that's the same difference as if a guy was a murderer or a rapist or whatever. You know, people like that won't get voted for by 30,000 people. You know, yes, ma'am.
I'm curious historically what has worked the best for change in every society, and then specifically in America. What does work? It, like you talked about power.
Mm-hmm.
Do people in positions of power have the most influence, or is
Yes.
it radicals, or is it?
Well,
Where's the power boundaries?
That's a great question.
Let's see the power here that gets wielded, and I mean somebody else can jump in if they want to say this in a better way. They think, but like you know, you probably heard recently the last few years the term 99% and 1%, right? So we got this 1%, but then we also have a part of that, the 1% of that 1%. That's probably the people that control everything in this country. They control who our politicians are. They, you know, the World Bank people. You know, and then it's not even just the country. This extends. You know, this American empire. They're the ones at the top pulling all the strings and pulling all the fingers. And it's not Obama or Bush and all those. Those guys are a figurehead. You know, and but I doubt they're making all these decisions.
So what's their weakness, and how do you control them?
See, that's the kind of question. No, that's a very good question. Here, don't let me forget that one.
My question is, how dangerous is charisma in activism, and how do you balance the power that somebody could gain, being an activist
Being a charismatic person.
Yeah, being an activist leader and start its own internal politics and people with their own agendas.
Okay, I'll try to answer both of those. Okay, so hers was, man, it was a really good question. Okay, what do you do? I'll just say this. One of the basic principles of guerrilla warfare is what's perceived as your opponent's strength is turning that into a weakness, and whatever they would perceive your weakness to be is turning that into a strength. And you can usually find something there, and every different climate is going to be different. Well, and there's always stuff, you know, like the Irish invented a lot of stuff that wouldn't be the same here. It's different in every place. Like you can read Che Guevara's writings about the whole Cuban Revolution, and that's a lot rural guerrilla fighting. And you know, there's things that he's wrote books about what he thinks they learned from that experience. And there's a lot of books like that. And I would say, I think, you know, if we don't know where to look here because it hasn't worked here, we haven't tried it here, we need to look at all these other histories. Like what I would hope is someday I get in a room with like 100 of us who all know their cultures and their backgrounds and where we were displaced from. Because between us all, we would probably know what to do. Hang on 1 second before I miss Jason's. I'll say this, you know, if you want to pick which leaders to follow and stuff, like the first night of Occupy, I was cleaning the toilets for like 3 hours and I couldn't find anybody to help me. And a lot of things like that. So I thought the next day, like, hey, anybody who wants to be trying to be one of the leaders should probably let everybody see him cleaning the toilets.
Right.
You know, like I find the people that are out to take advantage of positions of power are probably not into that kind of work too. You know, and that's just an example, but I think you know where I'm going with that. Watch what the person does and what they're about, you know, and
But tying both of those things together, and you know that sort of hands-on leadership. I don't remember who said it, but someone once told me that the true measure of a leader is their ability to create other leaders. If someone is not giving you the skills to become a leader, they're not interested in leading. They're interested in power.
I want everybody to be better at this than me. I want everybody that I'm ever an activist with, I want to be the worst guy, because then we're doing good. I don't want to be like, you know, and look for people like that. I think that goes in good with what he said. You know? Like, there was a guy that came along in my local group like a week or two in that I thought I was feeling like, you know, he was talking a lot and doing stuff I was doing, and I started getting a weird feeling about him, and I was like, man, am I like somehow got the wrong idea? Am I doing something wrong with this, that? I ended up just having a legitimate bad feeling that I was so happy, thinking, and hopeful about the whole thing that I didn't realize this guy was doing what we were just talking about. But at first I thought that I was somehow jealous or he was taking some position of mine or something, and I really looked at myself, and then that's when I realized though, like, that doesn't make sense because I want everybody to be better at this than me. I want to be the worst guy out there. You know, like if I could be the lowest of the bar, I'll feel that we're doing fine. You know. And I should, like, too, a lot of people who know me well, you know, and know me for a while and see the way I carry myself will say really good things about me, though. Have a lot of respect for me, say, hey, really good guy and really smart guy. And I'm both of those, smart and good. I'm all right, but I think there's a low bar in this country. In our climate and society of sickness, I just appear really good and smart because most people don't act right. You know, like, you know, like I used to have no conscience and do bad things, and then I changed good. So my starting point shouldn't be some peak point that people get to. That should be like, you know, everybody should be able to pull that off. You know, We don't have to lie to you. I met this Navajo Indian one time. Not Navajo, I'm sorry. He was from a South American tribe, but he had come from the Navajo reservation. And I think I got on tape. He sit there talking with this place and whistle. Guy was great. And I can't remember how to say it in his language, but the people, what they use in his tribe for goodbye and hello translates in English roughly to don't be liar, don't be stealer, don't be lazy. That's almost like a good rule for just human existence. If you pull those three off, you got half of it done already, you know? Like,
Yeah, right. If you could extrapolate off those three things to not be, that would keep you on the straight and narrow.
everybody can do that too. It's not if I can do it, anybody can do that one.
Speaking of empires, the Occupy movement was an interesting thing. It was the 99% and the 1%, right? But most of the 99% are middle class, maybe, and even if they don't have as much money as the 1%, they have enough money. I mean, they can live with it. They have luxurious lives, and maybe in the heat of the moment they put up a protest. But the main problem in this country, in my assessment, is the minority are the most that gets the brunt of the problems.
Okay.
So when you compare other empires with this American empire, as you have mentioned, how do you assess it? I mean, do you think there will ever be change with that paradigm calling American empire, and then because the minority cannot change the system, so the majority has to join them, but the majority have plenty of resources and they have the luxury, but also they have life. I mean, they have kids, they have other things, jobs and stuff. How do you compare with other things that who doesn't have anything to lose if they fight because they have already
There's
lost?
a lot of questions. I'll start on the last one. And
Okay.
you're going to help me if I miss the first two. Help me get back to them if I get too far.
They collect the same
I'm
question.
going to take something Malcolm X said here and just switch it around a little bit. He used this example for something slightly different. But, I heard a quick smart way to say it is they give everybody just enough to be afraid to lose it.
Oh, that's good.
And further, another example I like that I heard Malcolm.
What?
I'm sorry?
Walmart.
Yeah.
Walmart?
Yeah. Another thing is like this, like whether it be your kids and your job or your desires for houses or for comfortability or for what people think, whatever it is that keeps you from doing something, you can kind of look at that in this system like this American empire is like the dentist. And if a dentist sets you down and starts pulling your teeth just without giving you any medicine or anything, you're going to struggle and fight. You're not going to sit still. You're not going to let him pull your teeth. So he gives you a bunch of Novocaine so you can sit there and suffer peacefully. That's what all these things that keep us from resisting are. It's things to help us suffer peacefully. Everybody knows. I mean, like what she was talking about with the Black Lives Matter. Obviously, black people are getting incarcerated more than anybody. And if me and a black guy, I'm a poor white guy, and I look rough, and in a lot of cases, I'm not going to benefit from white privilege. But me and a black guy do the same crime, I'm going to bet that he's going to get it worse than me. And then too, if a cop's jumpy or whatever like this, he's probably going to get shot. I might get yelled at. There's a difference. There is a difference. And you can see it. From growing up institutionalized in the system, I dealt with these issues a lot, and all black people feel like a lot of them that are aware of these issues feel like they have to carry themselves the way guys who've been locked up before do. If you get pulled over, put his hands where he can see you. No fast moves. Like black children are getting taught that you better act like this. Like the only way like white criminals know that. So yeah, it's bad here for people of color for sure, and I do agree that people of color and not only poor white people but people. Good people of all walks of life need to be working together, but I found that we can. Like a lot of times, white people get defensive when you bring up white privilege, and I even know I'd never heard of that term before, and the way I'm from San Antonio, where like 70% of the people are full-blooded Mexican, and then if you mark the census, some of them say Mexican and something else or whatever. So it might have been hard for me to understand at first, and I might not have, but I also might not have experienced the same amount of. I've seen a lot of white people get defensive on these topics, and it's not about attacking any white person personally. But it's about acknowledging what's going on, and
It's about the truth.
and about being good. For me, it's also about being good. Like if Irish people were somehow the only ones getting it worse, I would hope people that weren't Irish would be like, hey, we want to help you. Like we see what's happening to you, and.
So the second part of my question is, how do you compare the other empires with this empire so to draw any kind of similarity?
Okay, well,
Where
in a
change
lot of
might-
ways, the military stuff is with Britain and Rome. It's going to be almost the same. The military things, and you can even some people look through that stuff and can find this one to be in decline already here. I know a lot of economists think we might be on a decline in that route also. Where that's not my main area of expertise, but I think there's probably something to that. But what I think the big difference are is really just those oceans. I don't think America would have became this empire. This would have probably been broken up into all kind of different borders and countries and stuff, except for we have those two big oceans protecting us. You know, we took the most usable part of this continent. America did. They got what they wanted out of Mexico, and they stopped. You know what I mean? Like they left Canada up there with the frozen part that they don't want. You know, they didn't know about oil way back then, right? Or they would probably took it all. You know, and now it's a little late in the empire game for us to be able to do that, but they do it in this different way. Like Canada is going to do what America tells it, pretty much. You know, those 100, 1,000 military bases in 180, 190 countries, and those countries, they're going to do what America wants. You know, so in comparison to those empires, I don't think this one's going to last as long. I don't know what's going to crumble, if it's going to be from the inside or the outside, or if it's going to just implode on itself. I don't think it's going to be as long-lived as the Roman or the British Empire. I think just the ocean's protected. You know, and the complacency of these people. You know, that's what, if we want to work in nonviolent methods, we need to work on somehow attacking that in a way we've never tried yet, you know? And money would help with that. But I often find the people who get large amounts of money often don't want to use it for things like that.
Two things. First, the videographer says roll back a little bit, please.
I was sitting too close.
But to address the first half of that, Viktor Frankl, I don't know if people know their history. Viktor Frankl was a survivor of the Nazi, he was a Holocaust survivor. He was also a psychologist, and he's quoted as saying, although he doesn't accept the quote, but it was when they came for the Jews, I didn't stand up because I wasn't a Jew. When they came for the gays, I didn't stand up because I wasn't gay. So on and so forth, and several iterations. And then when they came for me, there was no one left to stand up.
Yeah.
You know, Black Lives Matter, because when they're done oppressing them, that leaves poor white people or, you know, poor Mexican people. You know, when they're done oppressing the homosexuals on either side of the gender, you know, binary, that matters because when they're done oppressing them, that leaves straight people. You know.
And deaf people, you could tell us about. Like,
Right.
there's no shortage of people that have been persecuted in one way or the other here. It's like, you would think at one time or another they didn't like anybody except rich white ones.
That's the correct quote.
Everything matters. As they say, if anything matters, everything matters.
It's the wrong,
Everyone
attributed to
matters.
the wrong person.
And
gets
if you
attributed to a
allow
lot of
oppression
people.
here, then you're allowing oppression everywhere. And whether or not you believe it or like it or not, that's the truth. It's just, they just taper you off one at a time, one group at a time. So it doesn't matter about this. This is not relevant so much in terms of human rights. Because everybody has human rights and want to believe that they do.
Yeah.
So just be in one of those groups and see what happens.
Yeah, and see if your rights are the same.
That's right.
Jason, would you? Jason, then Aaron.
Yeah, my thought was, I mean, we've seen some things happen in the last 10, 15 years that nobody thought would happen 10, 15, 20 years ago.
Mhm.
Is that a false positive in your estimation?
Man, I don't know. I like, you know, I was always somebody who's like, look, literally a couple, maybe a month or two before Occupy, I was sitting there with a longtime friend of mine who I was talking to him like this for years before he would ever listen to me. And then 9/11 happened, it changed his ideas. Now we talk like this, and he's pacifist and I'm not. And you know, he had pointed out about the when it went around the Middle East before he came over here, the Occupy movement, when it was the Arab Spring. And I was telling him, look, if the Americans were worth a shit, we'd be doing what we just saw them do in the over there, and this and that. And they haven't done it yet. And I criticized and say that would never happen here because it would have happened already. And then it happened right after I said that. And I had to eat my words a little bit. And then I got really, really hopeful. And all that hope hasn't died yet. Like, I was surprised. Through my activism, I've met so many young people that know so much more than I did when I was their age, and are good people that want to put their lives out there, that I don't see some of them ever stopping. You know, and there's a few who I wouldn't say their names, but who talk serious with me and say, what would you be doing if you were really serious and stuff. Like, so there's people of all branches of activism out there. Occupy, at the very least, and I don't think that's all they did, but they made a new crop of activists that probably would have I wouldn't be one. I mean, I've been talking like this, you know, my whole life, but I never was doing it in front of crowds. I never was getting it written down. I never had a media stick a mic in my face until Occupy. I never. I didn't know activists all over the world that some of them might be seeing this, and I hope I did well when they do. But it definitely there's going to be some positives in there. I don't know what we're going to make of it. That's the question now. What are we going to make of it? A lot of the people who were involved with Occupy with me, we're all spread out and going our own different routes, and people doing different branches of activism in different cities. But everyone that I talk to thinks it will happen again. They just don't know when. They think it'll be in our lifetime. They hope it's soon. They think we'll all do better next time. And I don't think we think it's going to necessarily be Occupy or called Occupy, but we think something will happen just like that did. That, to me, I know some people disagree, but to me that happened spontaneously on accident overnight, and then there was this movement all across the country, even in small towns.
Yeah, oh yeah.
Aaron, did you still have something?
No. But hey, hopefully they'll call it occupied instead of just occupy.
I like the
We
decolonize.
will be there.
Like
Well,
what?
actually, Bubba, I was just thinking about something you were saying something in regards to someone being deaf, and we're talking about just the whole racial issue and stuff like that. I mean, wouldn't it be interesting if, let's say, 3 or 4 years out of our lives we're all blind, and that's how we just talk to each other, and then that whole color thing wouldn't be an issue because we see each other as equal as how we should, instead of thinking the color of our skin is the thing that somehow drives our brain.
I think it should be a good thing when we see differences in each other. It shouldn't be a bad thing. Like a big part of these cops shooting black folks is because they're probably scared of them, and because they have this indoctrination, this thing. Like I'm sure maybe not all of them. Maybe some of them are just being brutal and this and that. But I think some of them probably are just scared because it's a black person, and I think some white people are that way.
They're
And,
scared in their own hide.
Yeah.
And I mean, just growing up being a white person and hearing white people talk, there's just something to that. They're just scared of somebody because they're black. And in another part of the world, they'd be scared of somebody because they were something else. And then a lot of white, that's why I tell people learn the history. I doubt if Irish were the only white ones that had it bad here at first, I'd be really surprised.
Oh, we know it's not true.
I mean, they used to, that when America was being founded, they draw Irish people like monkeys and use every derogatory thing that they used on anybody else, they used on us. And the same signs, the same buildings had signs that said no blacks, no Jews, no Irish.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's parodies of it all throughout.
Right now, the British Broadcasting Network, I think it's them, it's some British TV show. I'm not sure exactly which ones I should say, but they're trying to make a comedy satire show about the Irish famine. Which now Irish people don't consider that a famine because it's really not. Like saying that all these millions of people starved and ran away because they ran out of potatoes would be like saying, well, Chicago ran out of pizza, so everybody starved to death. Don't they have cheeseburgers? Well, sure they do. The British took all the cheeseburgers and sent them to Britain. So that's what the famine was, a lot more of a genocidal thing than it was an actual famine. They used the potato blight to do systematic genocide and try to make them all leave too. And it worked good. That's why Irish people are everywhere.
I just had a quick comment. I think this is kind of fun, and there's a lot of questions and answers and conversation. It might be a good idea to do something like this kind of regularly.
I would definitely be down. Somebody else could be the main one next time. And I can or next time, if I make notes, I can actually look at them while I'm talking sometimes. Yeah, I just hope everybody feels like I said something smart, and that it was good, The only last thing I want to leave with is for people who do think about resisting but think that it's impossible, that you couldn't do it here, besides pointing to Afghanistan and Vietnam and all these other examples, I would just say, to me, same as those little kids I saw in the system, even if you know you're going to lose, if it's a good fight and it's against something bad, I think it's worth fighting anyways. Even if we're all going to be dead and we're going to be star doom and nothing ever matters ever and all this stuff, it's still good to be good for the sake of being good. You don't have to have a religion or a God to want to be good. It helps some people and some people are bad even when they have one and everybody's different, but we can all, like the Charlie Chaplin speech, we all want to help each other. Human beings are like that.
Yeah, exactly. That beautiful Charlie Chaplin speech.
Like, that's one of those ones that hasn't been said better since then, probably in all the years. Everybody, if you haven't by now, watch the Charlie Chaplin speech. Just go right, best speech ever in YouTube.
You got 10 minutes.
10 minutes. Yeah, go Jason.
So what do you see as success in the next 10 to 15 years of activism?
I mean, like I said, I got and among activists, I'll meet some other ones that say, oh, I like fighting back, I did too, but I won't talk about it out loud, or this and that and the other. So me personally, and I feel like some of the people that I know that I think are the smartest say that we should all be working on everything. Like when some of my friends support me in hunger striking, and some groups even do if I go and do that. And I want to show, like Americans will usually throw a hunger strike, and 2 weeks later, you don't hear nothing else about it. And that's not the same thing, and it's not going to ever, be a tactic here unless people really do it. So I sometimes think, like Bobby Sands, that I could do it, and that if I go and do it, then maybe it won't be the last one, or maybe it'll inspire somebody to do something that they wouldn't have did otherwise, or whatever. Like, that's what I'm looking for, is to make sparks. I hope other people are looking to make sparks, and then some smart people I know in other countries will say that, there's sparks happening every day, and so we got to find a way to make them catch,
Yeah.
So how do you, because this country is run by the media, so how do you fight guerrilla warfare in the media? I mean, how do you get control of that in order to get...
I mean, at this point, I think the internet's what the best chance we got at that is the internet. Like, even me, like, I literally, right now when I'm traveling, like this whole last year, I get my news off my Facebook, but I know about 200 people that I have on there that I never see pictures of somebody's dinner, or they went on a date, or silly stuff. Like, I see what's happening in all parts of the world. It's pretty much what comes up on mine, and I'll see it, pretty right after it happens, and it's good and solid. So I would say, it evolved to your own way of doing it, but that's what the internet's for. Same way that we're talking about good books, I could say, hey, go watch this person talk, go learn from this person this, and that's the thing, like, we're far enough in history, we have this tool of the internet, that we can learn more than any other group of poor people and just the people ever learned ever before. That's what I noticed a lot about Occupy. You had, in almost 200 countries, there was all the people doing the same thing at the same time. That's almost one of the most special things about that too.
Yeah, but we're in jeopardy of losing that resource. So,
Yeah.
I mean,
Anonymous supposedly was going to have a backup internet going, like, at the beginning of 2012. I don't know if people are still working that or not, but some people say there's a backup internet being worked on for if it ever gets like that.
So there are many activism in this country, so many movements, right? But when we look at resistant history, even from what you told us, there was some kind of abstract goal of the resistance. Do you think the sheer number of activist movements a blessing or a curse?
I kind of think it's some of both. If we used it right, it'd be a blessing, right? But if we keep using it like this, it's pretty much worthless. I don't want to say worthless because but I go back to like what Malcolm X said about progress. A little thing here, a little thing there. If we don't get at the real thing, we're not getting at it. The left here or activists here or whatever. I even saw it in Occupy. Like, I saw some groups that had been around before Occupy were happy to come in and work with us because there was this big thing. Some groups wanted to either co-opt, and if they couldn't, they wanted to get out right away. Like, you either be in my group or we're not doing this thing, kind of deal. And that's a lot when I travel around now after Occupy and work with different activist groups. They're smaller. They don't work together. Even though First Nations issues is some of my most important. It's where my largest sympathies lie on this continent. And I'd love to see every Indian everywhere working together because, like Tecumseh said, but it's even later in the game now, right? Like, maybe there's not enough left that we can be, if you want to be an Indian and you want to be good, we should all be together. We might disagree about this or that, any of the people here that are out for change. We might disagree, but I got to think our core things are probably the same. We're going to be able to find things, and those things should be so important, it should transcend our differences. Because you know what? The people who watch Fox News are all on the same side. Racist people, sexist people, people that hate poor people, people that are all these people, they're on the same side.
So, if you could, just hypothetically, because I don't think we're all, how do I phrase this? What would you say those core issues are currently? Like, they're going to evolve as the struggle evolves.
To me, like, when people ask me what I thought, they want to, some media guy trying to ask me a trick question about what Occupy wants so that I don't have an answer, I would say I'm pretty sure everybody would settle for judicial, economic, and political equality with justice for everybody. I think we could probably all settle for that. Some sort of form of actual democracy, expression of actual democracy that was in practice. Not you get a vote for this scumbag or this scumbag, in a suit, this thug that wields power that's well-mannered, or whatever like that. I think if we could vote for actual human beings, I think if, and I saw in the Occupy groups where it was like, somewhere like a direct democracy thing going on. The people who ended up becoming leaders weren't the people who our society makes leaders. If you just put human beings out there, the leaders would be much better too. Like, I don't think they have, whatever the left here has, I will say they have good people, they have smart people, they have creative people. If we could ever work together, we probably got all the people we need.
Another thing that the right has in common is a faith-based background. So
even if they don't believe in their own faith, sure.
Right. So where do you see is activism going to come head to head with? Is it a holy war at some point? Well,
no, both sides of this. Like, you know, in every city I've gone to in my travels, the Catholic Workers Union's been out there protesting Guantanamo in D.C. with me, and they're doing good things in other cities. I think I've seen them doing stuff in this city. There's some of those on both sides. You know what I mean?
But those are liberal bubbles. I mean, you get to the Bible Belt, and people, I mean, they're brainwashed by Fox News. You know,
No, for sure. But I mean, there's people who can speak more intelligently on this than me. But there's a word for in every society, even ones that have had successful revolution. There's a large amount of the people that are pretty much going to go with whatever happens or whatever. These are people who are going to be inactive, and they're going to support whichever system is in place. You know,
Right.
I think that's who those Fox people are or whatever. Like, I think if things switch, they'd probably be, oh, now we hate whatever they told us to hate today.
Right.
You
So
know?
it's a living thing.
Well, I mean, a lot, but that doesn't mean that those people aren't dangerous, and that it's not a bad thing, and that, you know,
I'm pretty sure Martin Luther was a Christian.
the what?
I said I'm pretty sure Martin Luther was a Christian.
Yes, and other good people, lots of good people.
And I don't mean I'm not blanket talking about Christians. I'm talking about a certain type of Christians that are, I mean, the brainwashed Fox News type.
I like people whose religion is being good, no matter what they call it.
Fundamentals, absolutely. Yeah. Fundamentals are going to be an issue in any situation.
What you
I
should
think
do is learn from them. Watch how cohesive they are. Learn from them. Watch their behavior.
That's guerrilla warfare
and do
thinking.
what they do.
That's
do it on the left. That's the way you do it. Because I learned how to be who I am by watching the people that I needed.
I learned to be how I am by watching my parents how not to live.
Just watch them. Yeah.
Yeah, because you could take two examples. There's always going to be a little bad. There's always going to be good. So you learn from the bad, not don't copy that.
Right.
But the good,
But
and
you
that's
can
what
get
you embrace.
it can teach you. You can learn a lot from just watching their behavior.
For sure.
Particularly in the areas that you want to have strength.
Yes, ma'am. That's actually wisdom. I think wisdom is like learning something without having to learn the hard way. So in practical wisdom, it would be like knowing that I'm going to wish I had done this or I'm going to wish I had done that. You know, if you can ever find a way to practically use that, then you're probably being wise.
You know what? I saw Clinton and Bush together one day after Clinton was out of office, and they were just laughing and talking and doing this old boy thing. And I looked at that and I thought, what the hell? But see, they bamboozled us, and so they're all in bed together, and it just doesn't matter.
Democrats and Republicans aren't too far apart.
No, they aren't, and so it doesn't matter.
It's funny how they do the same stuff.
Their name, the name they give it. It's
The
the
lobbyists
name.
are the same. It's Goldman Sachs
It's the
paying
name.
both of them. It's the same people on both sides paying
It's the
both of them.
same
Yeah.
people.
One is a carrot and one is a stick.
Yeah.
Carrot only goes so far, and a stick only goes so far.
Yeah, just a comment with regards to religion. I think it can work either way. Because the issue here is not about religion, it's about economical justice and some other justices. In my country, in Ethiopia, there was war. The leftists were communists, they were the resistance. In the most conservative area, they had priests as fighters.
Yeah.
So it depends on your propaganda.
Yeah,
So
for sure.
so it could be either way.
Yeah, I guess one more.
I just had a little side comment. I saw a thing once where like the majority of U.S. presidents, if you trace back in their genealogy, are related.
They're all related except like one or two, and they're all British, I think, too.
Interesting.
Except like Kennedy might have been the first not British one. Well, it's like really like, to an Irish Cherokee, it don't look much different than Britain. It's just they changed, this is Big Boy Britain now, like the child outgrew its parent, or whatever. In Britain, it's not like they went back to just being nothing either or whatever. They got 58 countries that they're still involved with, pretty heavy. And anything bad America's doing in another, brown country somewhere, Britain's going to be right there with it. Well, hey, thank you everybody, and thank you, Jocelyn, for
Thanks, Bob.
everything.
Thank you, Bob.
Yeah, man.